Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Boost Your Bookings webinar. I am so excited to have you here. This is a topic that I'm super passionate about. And in the webinar today, I'm going to show you how you can use your website and social media together to boost the inquiries that you have in your business and book your dream clients. So let's dive right in. So, for those of you who may not know me, my name is Sarah. I'm a digital marketing specialist and I help wedding professionals and creatives with everything from social media management to web design and branding and email marketing. Basically, anything that has to do with marketing your business online. I also own a studio here in Kingston, Ontario called Modern Bliss Collective. And so, at our studio, we create a lot of content for clients and we help them, really elevate their online presence. We also rent out our studio. So if you're a content creator or business owner that's interested in using our studio to film your own content, feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to help you with that. Okay, so my first question is, does any of this sound familiar? You're wondering why you're not getting more bookings, right? I see this all the time in Facebook groups. People are constantly posting saying, I'm doing all of the things. I'm constantly posting on Instagram. I'm sending out the pricing, but when I send out pricing, people seem to ghost me. I have a website, but I don't really think it's doing a whole lot. Or I'm spending hours on creating the content, but I'm really not seeing any of the results. These things I hear all the time, and it's so common with business owners. A lot of business owners think they're doing all of the right things. They have listened to podcasts and talked to other professionals, and they are posting consistently, and they're doing all these things, but they're not actually seeing any results from it. And in a lot of cases, what I see is that there's a big disconnect between how business owners how business owners understand the relationship between their website and social media, because they have different purposes. They're both great marketing tools, but they serve different purposes. And so we're going to talk about that in this webinar, because that is like one of my, the biggest things I want to help business owners. I see this frustration and overwhelm every single day, whether it's, talking to a business owner on Instagram or seeing different posts in a Facebook group. It's something that, I see people experiencing, and I know that there's a better way. And in a lot of cases, business owners just aren't aware of what they need to be doing and how these connect and how they can use these tools together so that they're getting the most out of them. They're getting the best return on their investment, because at the end of the day, a website and even your social media, those are investments you're making, right? Whether it be investments with your time or investments with your money, when you use those tools, you're making these investments. So you want to be sure that you're getting the most out of them. So we'll dive into that today. So here's a little bit of what we'll cover. We'll talk about how to make your website do the selling for you. We'll talk about how you can use social media strategically so that you don't burn out. Again, that is something that is super common. We see all the time business owners saying, like, we're posting consistently. In fact, I can't tell you the amount of business owners I've spoken to that have been told by professionals that they need to be posting 3 to 5 times a day, which is just so crazy, because there is no possible way a business owner can keep that up, right? And so, and not only is it impossible for somebody to keep, that type of consistency up, but it's just not necessary. I am a big believer in posting quality over quantity. And so I don't think that you need to post that much to see good results. We're going to talk about the secret connection that your website and social media have and how they integrate together. And I have a special offer at the end. So if you watch this webinar all the way through, you will be able to take advantage of that offer. Okay, so let's talk about why you're not getting those bookings. I have spoken to tons of wedding professionals, and a lot of them say that they're getting a lot of inquiries and that they are sending out proposals to people, to different couples, and they're sending out pricing to couples, but they are constantly getting ghosted. And these inquiries are not actually turning into bookings for their business. And that's the thing. Like, we that's it. We're in business. A lot of us are in business because we genuinely love what we do. But at the end of the day, if your business is not profitable, it's not really a business. It's just a hobby, right? And so we want to make sure that all the things we're doing are intentional and aligned with our business, so that we can get the best ROI. So, first thing, your website isn't optimized to convert. And we see this a lot of the times when people are using templates that they've either purchased or free templates that the web design platform is offering. And these can be great ways to get started. But the problem with them is that they're not optimized specifically for your business, right? And so, you'll see later on in this webinar that, when I create a website, it's very strategic. It's not just a bunch of pretty things on a web page. I really do think strategically about the business and the goals of the business, and how their customers are going to interact with them. So that's something that's super important. In a lot of cases, a template that a business owner has customized themselves just isn't optimized to convert. Your message isn't speaking to your ideal client. So this goes back to your branding, actually. And this is why I say branding is so foundational for your business, because it literally impacts every single area of your business. And when we talk about branding, a lot of people think it's just about, like beautiful colors and beautiful fonts and a logo. And branding goes so much further beyond that, and I think a lot of business owners just aren't aware of that. It ties right into your messaging and how you're going to speak to your ideal client. And so when you are getting branding done, it's super important to nail all these different aspects of branding down, so that you can, speak to that dream client and really engage with them. Another area we see this is with branding is brand photos. I think so many people just aren't aware of the importance of brand photos and how they, interject with the other visual elements in your branding, like colors and logos and all that good stuff. And so this could be a really big reason as to why you're not getting any bookings. The third thing is your socials aren't driving traffic where it counts. So social media is amazing. It is such a phenomenal marketing tool. But if it's not doing its job, you're not going to see the results you want. And so it's really important for your social media to act as a tool that drives traffic to your website, so people can learn more about your business, and learn more about the services you offer and see your portfolio and all that good stuff. And lastly, you don't have a clear booking funnel, and this happens all the time. Business owners just don't understand why a booking funnel is needed, and how essential it is when we're talking about turning inquiries into actual bookings. Okay, so let's quickly talk about the client journey, because that plays a really important role in getting bookings for your business. So there are usually a couple ways that your clients are going to start interacting with you, or potential clients are going to start interacting with you. And the first way is on here, it's social media, right? So we want them to, we want to be drawing them in using social media. And then from there, we want them to go to our website, book, start the inquiry process, whether that be booking an inquiry call, like a discovery call, or filling out your form, whatever your process looks like, and then eventually booking. So if your website isn't optimized and isn't doing its job properly, then it's going to drop the ball and you're likely going to lose these potential clients. And again, like, I see this very often. I see a lot of websites in the wedding and creative industries, and in so many cases, people just aren't able to find the information that they need, which is obviously a big issue when they're trying to book services with you. In the wedding industry, it said that couples spend about 6 hours a week researching vendors and planning their wedding online. So when we think of it in that way, it's actually, your online presence is actually so essential when it comes to your business, because if couples are spending that amount of time every single week booking their wedding, and you're not visible, or they can't find the information that they need, they're just going to go to your competitor. And so it's super important that you have an online presence, and that it's doing its job properly, so that you can get those bookings instead of losing them. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the before versus afters of a website, and some of the things that we see. So the before. So oftentimes the websites are very outdated and cluttered. Something that comes to mind right away is when a lot of people put text on their websites, and it's just like paragraphs and paragraphs of text. Or they put paragraphs on their website, and it's paragraphs and paragraphs of text. And when somebody is coming to your website, you have seconds to get them to stay on your website. And so it's really important that your website has both the information that they need, but is also beautiful, and is easy to navigate and easy to read, because otherwise, they're just going to click out. And when somebody sees paragraphs of text, that, we live in an age where that is not appealing to them. And it's going to be really hard to keep them, in your world, because they're just simply not going to be able to, go through all of that text. And so we want something that's very clear and concise, and looks really good, so that they can get the information they need. The second point is, a lot of the times the information is confusing and they're unable to navigate. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I have been on a business's website, and I can't figure out how to contact the business. And I mean, I do this every day. So if I am somebody who I would consider myself tech savvy, and I'm unable to find this information quickly, then you better believe that potential clients are also going to have a hard time. And so it's really, the navigation on your website is really essential, and making things clear as possible is really essential as well. There are no clear calls to action. Sometimes there are no calls to action. And again, that is really important for your business when people are booking online. You don't want somebody to have to look in all these different places to try and find a button to book a call with you. You need that information visible and right in front of their face. And I always say, I think of myself, right? I am not a thrifter. And one of the reasons I'm not a thrifter, and I would love to be a thrifter, is because I don't like looking for things. Like when I go into a store, I want to see everything right in front of my face, right? So I want to see their products in front of my face. And I don't want to like go searching through racks and looking for all these things. And a lot of the times it is kind of a time thing, because, I'm busy and I have a million things to do. But so the same can be said about your website. People don't want to have to like look at a million places for the information they need. They want to see the information, so that they can make an informed decision about your business. And then lastly, leads are ghosting you. So some of the things we see when it comes to when a business owner has their website redesigned is, it's very strategic, as I mentioned before. So there are very clear reasons why we do things the way we do them, and why we place certain buttons in certain places. And there's just a lot of strategy behind it. And then, like I said earlier, it's paired with a website that is very visually appealing, right? So it has both of those elements. The messaging speaks to your dream client. That is really important. You want to talk about the pain points they're facing, and how you can help them with that, right? So if you're a wedding planner and, one of the main reasons a client is going to hire you is to reduce their stress and their overwhelm during the planning process and on the day of their wedding, then you really need to convey that message on your website. And if you can't convey that message, then it's going to be really hard to book that client. Having a simplified inquiry experience. A lot of the times I talk to a business owner, we'll sit down during our web design strategy call, and I'll say like, okay, what is your client journey, or how do clients book with you? Tell me a bit about that process. And they look at me like a deer in headlights because they really haven't given that much thought. And that is something that is super important. I always like to say that the least amount of steps, the better, right? So I recommend a 3-step process. And that could be them completing an inquiry form or booking a call with you right away. And then, getting a contract and completing it, and then paying or having an onboarding call. But you need to make it as simple as possible for them to book with you. You don't want it to be this like a big, this big thing that takes a million steps, because it's going to be hard and you're going to probably lose them. And that's one thing that CRM systems are super great for, because they allow you to automate part of this process, so that you're getting information out to clients in a timely, or potential clients in a timely manner. In the wedding industry specifically, you see this a lot during wedding season, where wedding businesses will take sometimes up to a week to get back to a potential client. And that's just too long. Having proper communications and systems set up in your business that really make that client inquiry experience better are essential. And CRM systems are something that can certainly help you with that. And this all, of course, leads to a fully booked calendar. And so that's something that, every business owner, especially those in the wedding industry, want, right? You want to have a fully booked calendar. And so, that is a result that we see after we help a business owner with their website. They're getting more bookings, they're getting more consistent bookings, which ultimately is the end goal. Okay. So you're probably going to hear me say this a few times during this presentation, but your website really is your best salesperson that literally works for you 24/7. And so, if it is not attracting clients, if people aren't coming to your website and you're not nurturing and converting those leads, you truly are leaving money and opportunities on the table. Because when done correctly, like this can make your life so much easier. And when you pair that with something like a CRM system like HoneyBook or Dubsado, you truly are just making your life so much easier and really helping the sales process in your business. And so that is the goal of this of your website is you want it to be your salesperson. You want it to do the job for you. So, those leads and those inquiries are coming in on a regular basis. Okay, so here are a few must-haves that you need for your website. So, clear messaging that speaks to your dream client. We talked about that earlier. It's really essential to have branding that is on point and really talks to the pain points and the things your clients are struggling or potential clients are struggling with, right? So, really sit down and think about that. Like, what do people struggle with, and how can I help them with that? And that messaging isn't just going to benefit you on your website, it's going to benefit you in all areas of your business, whether you're talking about it on social media. Or at a networking event, no matter where you are, knowing what those pain points are and how you solve those problems for people is really essential. And it's a really big part of your branding. Excuse me. So, portfolio highlights to showcase your stunning work. This is something I often find a lot of the photographers and videographers are super good at. For their business, they always have stunning visuals, which is amazing. And that is something that you really want to highlight. One thing I do say, if you have a business or you're in an industry where and you're just starting out, so you don't have a lot to showcase in your portfolio, one thing that I would really recommend is that you collaborate with other business owners. So if you're a wedding professional, that could be, asking photographers and videographers that are at the wedding if, they would be okay with sending you a few pictures from the wedding or some video clips from the wedding that you would be able to use and give them credit to. And that's a really quick way to showcase your portfolio without having to, take the pictures or the video clips yourself. Another way that you can do it is obviously hire a content creator like myself to come along with you. If you're a wedding planner, you can have a content creator come with you and record you setting up for a wedding, for an event. So that's another way that you could do it. If you're in an industry where you need to, do the work, like if you're a virtual assistant, for example, one way that I started out in my business was really to create mock-ups, right? So that would attract my ideal client, someone that I really want to work with. And so I would create social media templates. When I started the web design portion of my business, that's how I got a lot of my portfolio pieces is I would create these pieces and use them as mock-ups for my portfolio. And so it was a really great way to add to my portfolio and be able to present some of my work because that's what a lot of people want to see. They want to know that they can trust your work and trust what you're doing. And especially in the wedding industries, unfortunately, there are so many people out there that are not truthful about their business or what they can do. And so, couples really want to see that proof of what they can do. So the third thing is strategic calls to action that lead visitors to book. So, having several book now buttons or, buttons that take them to different web pages. So maybe you have a button that takes them to the page that talks about your services, or a button that takes them to your blog, or a button that takes them to the form that they need to use to book. Having those calls to action really is going to help lead your visitors to booking with you and starting that client journey. Optimizing your inquiry form. So this is a really great way when you have an inquiry form. This is a really great way to filter out clients that are or are not a good fit for you. I hear a lot of times wedding professionals say, like, I'm getting tons of inquiries and people are asking about my pricing, but then they don't actually book with me. And so, what I would look at is, okay, but are these qualified leads, right? So, are they, are first of all, are you speaking to them in your messaging, and what is your message, and is your branding speaking to them? But also, like, how are you pre-qualifying them? And so one way to do this is to put simply a like a section on your inquiry form that says, you know my prices start at X amount. Are you willing to make that investment, right? And so that's a really quick way to kind of weed those people out, because at the end of the day, we want your dream clients inquiring and booking with you. And so if you're not in the price point of some of these inquiries, then they likely aren't going to book with you. Um, and lastly, having a mobile designed website that has fast loading, because at the end of the day, first impressions matter. As I said before, you literally have seconds to capture somebody's attention when they are on your website. And so, and you want them to stay on your website for as long as possible, right? So you want them looking at your blog if you have one, checking out your portfolio if you have one. You want them to obviously book an inquiry call or complete your inquiry form. And so that is a really important piece. And so you want your design to be mobile optimized and fast loading. And again, that's something that as professionals in the field, we are always looking for, right? We want to make sure that your images are good to use on the web, and that any videos you're going to use are also they're not going to slow your site down. So those are important things to keep in mind with your website. Okay, so this is just a mini website audit. I want you to take a moment to ask yourself these questions and think about your website, or go to your website even if you have a moment, and really see if what the answers are to these questions. So the first question is, can I tell what you do in the first 5 seconds? So, from looking at your website, are you able to see uh, what you do and how you can help people? Is it clear? And really, try and set your bias aside and really think, okay, if someone wants to book with me, is the information I'm providing them with clear? Am I giving them enough information to book with me? Is there a book now, at least a book now button on every page? And so I would say this is truly like the minimum. You really want to make sure that there are several calls to action on a page. And some of those may be book nows, but then other of them could be to go into different sections of your website. And does your website look amazing on mobile? So, like I said, so many couples now are planning their weddings online and they are using their phones. And we know that from different data that's been released. And so it's super important to make sure your mobile optimization is just as good as what they're going to see on your desktop, because a lot of people will be looking up your business on their phone. Okay, so now that we've talked about your website, let's talk a little bit about social media and what the purpose of social media really is. So, social media equals visibility and not bookings. So, as I was mentioning earlier, there truly are two ways that people are going to get to your website, right? So, they're going to get to your website through social media, or they're going to get to your website through finding you on Google, through SEO, or there's now new analytics we want to be, or optimizations we want to be taking into considerations called GEO. All these things play a role. And so those are different ways that you're going to get traffic to your website. So when it comes to social media, you want to get as much visibility as possible, but visibility does not equal bookings. And I think that's something that's super important to remember. But visibility is super important. And so I'll just give you a quick little example. Earlier this week, I launched an event I'm doing, a workshop I'm doing called the Content Collective. And I launched a web page for it. And all I did was announce it and put the link in my stories on my Instagram. And it was fascinating because the next day I could literally see how many people clicked the link from my stories and went right to my webpage. And so that information, I'm kind of like a data nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff, because that information is critical when it comes to your marketing in your business. We want like having data really shows you, what you're doing well and what you could improve on. And so, and we need that data, right? And so if you're not posting on social media or you don't have a website, we are not going to have that data. And so, yeah, it's super important. Visibility is super important, and being able to track that traffic is super important as well. One thing I want to say about that is stop relying on just Instagram. There are so many different social media platforms. One platform I find is so underused in the wedding industry is Pinterest. And yet, almost every couple uses Pinterest to plan their wedding at some point. And so, relying on different social media platforms is essential, but also keeping in mind what your capacity is, right? And so if you only have capacity to consistently be posting on two platforms, then pick two platforms and stick with those. Don't overwhelm yourself by trying to be on every single platform. And so I'll give you a quick little lowdown of what some of the platforms are good for. So when it comes to social media, Pinterest is great for finding things. A lot of people say that Pinterest is less of a social media platform and more of a search engine. And so that's why on Pinterest, things like SEO is super important because it's going to be how people are finding your content. The next platform that I'll talk about is Instagram. So Instagram is phenomenal for storytelling, right? Sharing with your potential clients what your pain points are and how you can help them. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but when I talk about content. But yeah, Instagram is super great for storytelling. And TikTok is great for visibility. So you can reach a large number of people on TikTok. And the nice thing about TikTok is, I think Instagram is definitely moving away from being, super aesthetically pleasing. But TikTok is even less of that. And so it's a great platform that you can use to increase your visibility and really build that like, know, and trust factor. And yeah, so I would, all three of those platforms are great. There are tons of other different platforms. There are Facebook groups. Facebook now is a lot for community building and, connecting with, people who are looking for your services. So think of like all the wedding groups that are out there. So those are super important. So social media will definitely get you seen, but people who see your social media aren't necessarily going to convert. Your website is going to be where that magic happens, which is, why you want your website to be optimized and as user-friendly as possible, and really draw them in. And so that's how these two tools intersect, right? Is that social media really does help you gain that visibility, and your website helps convert people who are coming into your world. And yeah, like even myself, I see it, right? Like on weeks where maybe I haven't posted as much as I normally do, it's fascinating because my web traffic will be down. And so it is really, I'm a strong believer that those tools are really important and they work together, and have a relationship of working together. And we need to be, intentional and aligned with both of them so that they can do their jobs and work together. Okay, so as we mentioned earlier, social media is the top of that funnel, and I talked a little bit about this earlier, but Instagram and TikTok are really great for visibility. Instagram is also great for the storytelling, and then your website is great for those conversions. So when we think about that, um, it helps us create. Different types of content that are going to appeal to our audience. So, when it comes to social media, storytelling is really important. Again, it comes back to your branding and it comes back to the messages that you have, right? And, the pain points you're helping your potential clients solve, or you're helping your clients solve, and like how you help them solve those challenges. And so, portfolio highlights, again, are super important. They really showcase your expertise. And so, as I mentioned before, there is definitely a way to build your portfolio, even if you're a new business. And I think a lot of people, this is a question I see asked in a lot of like virtual assistant groups, or business groups, is like, well, how do I, like, if I'm just starting out, how in the world do I start building that portfolio? And there are so many different ways. One really popular way to do it is to collaborate with other business owners that may be new, and do an exchange, right? So if you're a virtual assistant, maybe offer services that will help a social media manager, and that could be like helping them create forms in their CRM, and then you can showcase those forms that you've created. One thing I did in the past, when I was doing admin and virtual assistant work, was I, would always recommend to my client things that would improve their business. And then I would be able to use that in my portfolio. So one time I created a like a form, a timeline form in Dubsado. And so I was able to use that to showcase some of the things that I could do and some of the skills I had as a virtual assistant. And so think of how you help other business owners, and don't be afraid to reach out and collaborate, especially in those groups on Facebook. They can be so helpful and filled with so much information. And they are a really great way to network with other entrepreneurs. So I'd recommend join a couple groups that are relevant to what you do in your business, and then like network with others, meet others, follow each other on social media. Don't be afraid to collaborate, because I do think collaboration is so necessary when it comes to being successful in business. Okay, so the next type of content is behind the scenes. And so this is really going to build trust with your followers. And I think, a lot of wedding professionals, I'm thinking of photographers and videographers in particular, are really great at being behind the camera, but you often don't see them in front of the camera. And that is really important. Not all of the time, but it's certainly essential some of the times. And so there are a few ways to do this. As I mentioned earlier, hiring a content creator like myself to help you create content. When I work with my clients, we go through a whole guide that talks about different things that they're going to need when we film this content, and what they should wear, and how they should look, all these things that tie directly into your branding. And so that's super important. You can obviously bring and do the behind the scenes content yourself. I know so many people are not fans of being in front of the camera, and in a lot of cases are very nervous when it comes to being in front of the camera. And I completely understand that because I used to be that person. And so like I remember when I started off 4 years ago as a virtual assistant, I remember being like, I hated being in front of the camera, like hated it with a passion. I had no issue telling other people what they needed to do or how they, different content that they could create. But when it came to myself, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then eventually, after working with a coach, I did get past that. And I think the biggest thing is to just start. I know it can be scary, and I know that not everyone is super comfortable with it, but starting with taking clips of just things you're doing in your life and how they relate to your business can be super helpful. And taking clips of things that you do directly in your business. If you're a florist, just set up your phone and take some B-roll showing, the different things that you do. And so it's super important to have that behind the scenes content. And another way you can do it is obviously getting somebody else to film you, which a lot of people do. If you don't, like, if you're new in business and don't, like, if you're a wedding planner, for example, and you don't have any weddings coming up, rent out a studio like ours and set up like a mock wedding so that you can create content with. There are so many ways that you can get this behind the scenes content that doesn't involve you even talking to a camera. It can simply be B-roll, but still shows your face. So, people can really build trust and know who you are. And then lastly, client testimonials. And these are really important, but there has definitely been a transition. And so, we used to see it where people would just kind of throw up the testimonials on their website or throw up the testimonials on Instagram. And there really has a big, a move away from that, if you will. And so now, people don't want to just read the testimonials. They want to know the struggles that people had and how you helped, your clients overcome these struggles. And so that is super important. Telling a story behind those testimonials to use that social proof is really essential instead of just throwing up a testimonial. And you'll see that as we go forward. Okay, so another thing that's super important when it comes to social media is your call to action strategy. And so really thinking about, what you want people to do when they read your post on social media. So linking back to your website is super important. You want to use really strong calls to action that are really going to get them to take action. One really big benefit and tool that you can use is creating automations using platforms like ManyChat. And so you've probably seen these being used where people will say, comment start and I will send you my guide, or comment start and I'll DM you the link to my form or the link to book a call with me. And so having these calls to action is a key piece of social media because otherwise people aren't going to take action. You really need to lead them and show them what you would like them to do in order to take action. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through a couple case studies that I have in my own business to really show you how social media and websites, work together to see success. So one of my past clients was a mobile bartender, and their goals were to increase their reach, get more bookings, and have more engagement on their website and socials. And so Throughout our time of working together, we ended up generating 3 times more leads. And we did this by creating a social media strategy and making sure their website was optimized for bookings and that people knew how to book with them. And so it was a visibility. A big part of it was visibility. And so we use social media to create that visibility and drive traffic to their website. And over time, and through being consistent, their business increased significantly, to the point where they actually created an in-house marketing team. So I was working with them as a social media manager, and we also did things like email marketing as well to support this. But they ended up becoming so successful, and their marketing was doing so well that they hired a team to do it. So that's just one example of how these two tools can be used together. My next client, she actually owns a studio like mine, and she also is a wedding planner. And when we started working together, she knew that she wanted to. So when she started her new business, I should say, she knew that she wanted to start it off on the right foot. And so she wanted to have a website, but the problem was that she couldn't afford to invest in a full website. And so, she came to me and said, I know it's really essential to have an online presence, to look professional and to build that like, no trust factor, but I just don't have the budget as this business is new. And so what we ended up deciding on is to create a one-page website using the branding I did for her and brand photos. So you can actually see on the screen, one of the photos is her brand or her brand photos for the space. And you can actually see that her brand colors directly tied into those brand photos. And that was done very intentionally. And so that's what I mean when it comes to brand photos and really making sure that they are aligned with the other visual elements in your branding. And so we created a one-page website. It gave, visitors all of the basic information that they needed, and it told them how they could book with her. The thing that's great about a one-page website is that you can build it, and then later on down the road, you can make a second investment and you can finish the rest of your website. And so it's a really great option to get started with something custom and build on it as your business grows. So here's the truth. I'm going to talk a little bit about a DIY site quickly versus a custom site and really what the difference is, because I get asked this question all the time. So a DIY site tends to use these very cookie cutter templates that look very generic and really don't reflect the personality of the brand, because in a lot of cases they don't have that strategy behind them. Now what you're starting to see is some template customization. So that's where a business owner would purchase a template and they would be it would be customized to their branding. And so that is, one really great option if you are on a tight budget. It's easy for visitors to tell when your site isn't polished or feels outdated. And so with DIY sites tend to really look and become outdated way faster than a custom website. And in a lot of cases, when somebody is selling a template, they could have made this template years ago, right? And so, and they're not necessarily going to take it down. And so it could have elements that are completely outdated. And this will be very obvious to your audience. The third thing is it's designed to look pretty, but it has absolutely no strategy behind it. So that strategy is a really big part and a really big piece, which I talked about earlier. So it's super important. At the end of the day, pretty does not pay the bills. You want something that is both beautiful, but also is going to help your business be profitable. And it doesn't guide visitors to take action. And again, that comes down to the calls to action, right? And so you really want to hold their hand and tell them what they need to do to book with you or to purchase one of your products. And it is often a band-aid solution. As I talked about in the previous slide, they tend to not last as long and really need to be updated much faster. And so, you could be spending tons of time and tons of money and really not getting anywhere or having to redo this again in the very near future. Okay, so a custom site. A custom site is built to showcase your brand. It's built to showcase your unique style and attract your dream clients. Every design choice that we make as web designers is very intentional and aligned with your brand identity. So we're always thinking about that, and we have that in the back of our minds when we're designing your website. It is truly built around a client journey. So that's why we talk about that. That's why I talk about that in my strategy calls with clients, because what the client journey is really is going to impact, certain design elements on the website. You really want to make sure that the inquiry buttons are well placed so people know how to book a call with you or know how to inquire with you. And it's usually done by a professional who knows, how to make it work behind the scenes, right? And so a lot of us have tons of experience doing this, and we've learned how to build websites that are both beautiful and strategic. So at the end of the day, first impressions count. So your website is usually the first impression clients have of you. And so you want to make it good. And if it doesn't wow them within the first few seconds, they're just going to leave and book with someone else. And that's just the reality of it. And so that's why, having a website that works for you is super important. So here's a little bit of the truth. You can certainly DIY a website. I mean, we see it done all of the time. If your goal is to just throw a website up, then, you can certainly do that. But one thing I always tell people to keep in mind is the amount of time it's going to take to build your website yourself, the amount of frustration you're going to have, and what the return on investment truly is. Especially if you don't know about all these elements. If it's not designed properly, then it's probably not going to give you a good ROI. And so, I think one thing when somebody is concerned about money, for example, which is super understandable, I always ask them this question: how many clients would you have to book in order to recoup the costs of this website? And do you think you could do that? And in most cases, it's only one or two clients. And they're like, oh my gosh, yes. When you break it down like that, we can definitely do that. And in fact, your new website should do that. And so I think, you can spend hours and hours and hours learning and reading, listening to podcasts, doing all these things to figure out how to design your website. But at the end of the day, in a lot of cases, your time is going to be much better spent getting clients to help you pay for this website so that you can hire a professional to do it and you don't have to be doing it. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, you likely did not start your business to become a web designer or a social media manager. And so, a lot of business owners would rather invest that time into finding clients or helping clients rather than, figuring out how to design their own website. Okay, so here's a special offer I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar. So I am offering a Boost Your Bookings website package where you will get $500 off a one-page website or a full website design. So that is quite a hefty discount that I'm giving, and I'm giving it to people who watch this webinar, who have taken the time to learn how they can boost and increase their business through this webinar. I'm so grateful to all of you who watch this, and so I really want to offer this to you. And also, I really want to help business owners. The whole purpose of me doing this webinar is to help business owners and really help show them how and what they can do and really empower them to help them increase bookings and at the end of the day, increase revenue in their business, which I think is something all of us really want. There are, however, I should mention, limited amount of spots available just for for time's sake, I do only take on a limited amount of clients. Um, and there is a deadline. So this $500 off is only good for the first 2 weeks after you watch this webinar. And then after that, it can't be used to get a good deal on your website. So that's something to just keep in mind. So here are a few key takeaways after watching this webinar. So your website is your biggest booking tool and your best salesperson. I think this is something that is so beneficial to repeat. It really is going to support you in your business and really take a lot of stress off of you, because you won't be sitting there figuring out, okay, how am I going to get clients? A pretty website does not equal a profitable one. And so your website can be the most beautiful website there ever was, but if there's no strategy behind it, you likely aren't going to see a good return on your investment. Strategy beats hustle every single time. So that comes back to your quality over quantity. I'm a huge believer in having a social media strategy and helps you really post with intention and build your social media so that you're not burning out. I will actually link I have a social media strategy ebook, so I will go ahead and link that. And the journey your clients takes matters. So it's really important to put that thought and care into thinking about what their experience is going to be like. And lastly, investing in a strategic website pays for itself. So yes, I understand that a website is a really, really big investment for so many businesses, especially if you're just starting out. But think of some of the strategies that I mentioned to you. If you're just starting out, a one-page website is amazing. It's, a one-page website that has strategy behind it, in my opinion, is much better than a DIY website that has no strategy. It's going to get you more results at the end of the day, even though it's only one page. So definitely something to think about. Okay, so lastly, let's book your dream website. So, if you want to move forward and take advantage of that offer that I gave you, I would love to chat. You can reach me through my website, on Instagram, or send me an email to book a call. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Like I said, this is something I'm super passionate about, and I want to help as many business owners in the wedding and creative industries as I possibly can. And so, if you have any questions or want to book a call to see if we would be a good fit or what services I may be able to help you with, I would love to do that. So, thank you so much for attending this webinar. I truly appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, thank you so much and have a great day.